Good evening, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. It's been a crazy day for me on mine. Very busy, but we're finally back in action after a long day yesterday. It was a 6 hour long stream. Pretty interesting weather. Unfortunately, no chaser feeds were really available that day, but there were plenty of big time storms, big time hail, and even a couple of tornadoes. But we are starting to get back into a little bit more of an active pattern. It's going to be a spring-like pattern, and we'll get into the details later throughout the course of the week. More severe weather is possible around that time. So far, we only have Thursday, but I do see potential for Friday to get a risk area. Most likely will be a slight risk. In fact, there is chance of that being upgraded over the next couple of days. We'll briefly touch on that. And probably either tomorrow or Tuesday we'll go into greater detail with that. But as things stand right now, our current severe situation is just a handful of damaging wind reports, and a couple of hail reports, a few in Florida. Been a couple of tornado warnings over in Florida earlier today. It just seems like the place that just keeps on giving when it comes to tornado warnings. No touchdowns though, of course, so that's always great news. But that's today's marginal risk. And then there's another marginal risk on Tuesday. And this area is going to be more so towards the plains. Most of these storms are going to be elevated, so hail is going to be the main threat. Not to say that a damaging wind gust can be ruled out. I don't see any potential for this to be upgraded to a slight risk, so we're not going to be super worried about that. But if anything changes, of course, you will get an update here, of course. Then the main day that I'm concerned with as of right now is Thursday, but I actually see greater potential for Friday. So don't be surprised if tomorrow that I may make a post showing a risk factor for day 6 as of right now. It'll probably be day 5 by tomorrow. But this little 15% area may also grow in size, so we'll be keeping an eye on Thursday as well. The main threat with day 5 as of right now, or Thursday, is going to be hail and damaging winds. Tornado threat does not look that impressive. It's kind of a setup like what we saw yesterday, but I do think Friday has much greater potential to yield to all hazards, including tornadoes and maybe multiple. While we're at it, we'll also do a quick forecast for the week here, or leading into Thursday and Friday. Year only goes up to about 90 hours. We're not going to try to look into the entire GFS here. We might as well do a whole pattern check at that point. And I don't want to make this a super long video for you guys. But essentially what we have going on here, here's some of our heavier snow that's still falling over across parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. We may take a look at the snow totals by the time the next video comes out. And then there's also increasing activity across the Northwest. Not a lot of cold air in place, so only towards the higher elevations are we going to be really seeing that snowfall beginning to take effect here. Otherwise, it's mostly going to be rain unless you're north of the border. So we roll this forward here. This system's out of here. A little bit of snow lingering towards the UP of Michigan and parts of Wisconsin still as we head into Monday evening. Then our next big storm system comes in. A lot of snow towards the higher elevations. A little bit of cold air does start to deepen at this point across parts of the Northwest, so the snow levels will be dropping just a little bit. Then as time goes on, as we head into Wednesday, here's some of our marginal risks that we could be seeing here. Well, Tuesday, excuse me. And then into Wednesday. See a nice little snowstorm try to develop, but ends up sneaking north of the border. Montana looks like you guys may see the most action out of this. And then, of course, over towards Colorado, here's our next low pressure, and this is going to be the catalyst for our next potential severe weather event. So it's heading in, or this is actually going to be like a little mini trough ejection, I should say. But we're at the 90-hour mark at this point, so we could see some activity over here towards Minnesota and Iowa to start out Thursday morning, and then the main event is going to be further to the south. So let's go ahead and get into that then. So we're switching back over to the GFS here. We're looking at the higher levels of the atmosphere. We're going to pretty much be looking at 3 levels of the wind profile because this first setup for Thursday isn't that impressive, or at least in the last couple of model runs that I've seen. There is a decent mid-level jet, low to mid-level jet here, but the streak is a little bit out of time. The timing of this, where this jet streak kicks in, it's a little bit too far to the north, and severe weather threats a little further to the south as of right now. I do expect this area to maybe expand a little further to the north here, but some of the thermodynamics and kinematics just aren't really matching for me right now. I think this threat goes on earlier in the day from the looks of it here. But again, like I said, the overall, just the overall kinematics are not impressive. It's a lot like the last system. Excuse me. Got a lot of phlegm in my throat right now. But even though this has got a hazard type of none, you can see significant hail possible with this, but you also see a little capping inversion in place. That's also kind of complicating things. So this is giving me a lot of this is giving me that feeling that there's a lot of model discrepancy going on here. Plus, we're not in range of the NAM yet, so I don't really have anything to currently compare this to. I think by 21Z is going to be the next point where we could actually see some real severe, and there you go. Still a little bit of a cap towards the surface here, and this is over towards Arkansas, by the way. But a decent sounding, sufficient cape. Cap does look like it tries to break at this point, though. But again, like I said, the kinematics, the wind profile, the low level, not very impressive. So tornadoes are a factor as of right now, but I'm not very concerned about a tornado threat at the moment. When we get towards Friday, however, much different story. But one thing I will note about Thursday is the fact that I do see a little bit of an uptrend with this upper level jet here, whereas before it was really looking a lot less impressive. But this is where my concern begins to lie, right around here. Pretty much anywhere across this sector here is where I'm concerned about increased tornado potential on Friday. So we'll go ahead and then shift this over once we go a little bit further along into this run here. I gotta click on this. Oops, forgot I'm still in my, I still have the pin on, I don't have my actual, there we go. But yeah, look at that begin to deepen. And if it does deepen within this time frame or a little bit sooner, we could have some big problems here. It's also going to be a very cape-rich environment from the looks of it. Again, we're going to get into the really nitty-gritty stuff within the next couple of days here, especially since we'll start to be getting into range of other models like the Euro and the NAM. Especially the NAM. The NAM has done a really good job this year of honing in on severe weather threats. So as of right now, with even Thursday setup, we're just on the cutting edge of being outside it. We're just within like the cutting edge of starting to see what's going on with the NAM here. We're still going to be, so right now, of course, we're still looking at the GFS. But essentially, it's a similar deal. This is towards the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And like I said earlier, at the lunchtime models, this was looking a little less impressive. But the lower we get to the surface, the better this starts to look. Here's another good example. I think this was actually a pretty identical, if not the same sounding I was just looking at here. Now I think it's a tiny bit different. I thought it was about 130, maybe it might have been 135. But across this region here is where I'm keeping an eye out for any sort of potential tornadic activity. Most part it leans more so towards just regular severe, where you have damaging winds and maybe potential for hail. I kind of see a little bit more of a trend towards damaging winds for Thursday. So we get into Friday, though, watch what happens here. Look at this little sector, these two little sectors that develop here. We got one here, and we got one here. So these are the two areas that I'm going to be the most interested in watching for Friday as of right now. Of course, given the fact that we're still pretty far out, a lot is prone to changing. But it's a lot more confidence already in the hazard type being tornado. Much better look at the hordeograph here at the lower levels of the atmosphere. The moisture layer is pretty good as well, and there's not as much of a cap in place. So that being said, Friday definitely looks like it will more than likely within the next 24 hours probably get some kind of risk type from the SPC. But that was from Oklahoma. I think that was actually from here in Missouri. Here's a couple other spots in Oklahoma that I'm looking at closely as well. Okay, that was actually behind the front. I don't know why I just clicked that. Silly me. But here's another part of Oklahoma. This is a very wide hordeograph here. This looks almost linear in nature too. So this could be there could be multiple modes of storms. Maybe a bimodal event where we see some embedded supercells within a line, maybe some discrete supercells together. Of course, this is, like I said, over 5 days out. A lot can change with this. And normally I don't usually go by the low-level jet at this point because we're so far out. But because of the fact that we already have an early risk factor, I figure I may as well break the rule for once today. Okay, so this is 12Z. Here's that first little frontal system coming through. Could cause a little trouble there. But see, this is why I'm not so convinced by the severe weather threat for Thursday as much. It's because the low-level jet still isn't too impressive to me. Again, we're waiting to see what the NAM ends up bringing into the equation here, because this will probably look different by the time that starts to come into play. But look, even with the less impressive low-level jet and kinematics, still see a hazard type of severe. There's still a curve there in the hordeograph, so you can't rule out a tornado threat. But again, not very impressed by this look here. By the time we get later in the evening where the low-level jet would be intensifying, storms are already out of there, lifting mechanisms moved off. But then this new one comes in, and by the time we get towards later into the evening, we get this little pocket over here towards southeastern Texas. Here's a good look at the hordeograph. Has that look like it's trying to work its way towards classic supercell. In fact, there's a lot of supercell soundings, a bunch of different sounding analogs. Some significant, some weak, some non-supercellular. But the fact that we're seeing that this early on means this should be watched very closely. Here's a secondary area right here. It's a pretty similar deal. This one's a little bit better looking on the hordeograph, and this one's a little bit better rooted. I got a feeling that these look like, as of right now, these may end up being high precip cells, but we'll see what ends up happening with those. We'll take a look at Saturday and other days probably in another video. This one's probably already starting to run long at this point. But that's pretty much what all I have to show you as we head throughout the course of this week here. Of course, like I said before, if anything changes, definitely will be making more update videos as needed. In the meantime, though, we also have other stuff to talk about, like hurricane season, which will be up in the morning, or at least that's my goal. So look forward to that, and we'll still keep that content rolling from here on out. Of course, with me doing that, I'm asking you guys, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. Let's stick it to YouTube's algorithm here, so that way we can get more people watching here, because we are still very much in spring, and we still have a pretty intense weather pattern that is not anywhere near finished with us just yet. So let's stay on top of the game here. But that being said, this has been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. You guys take care. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe. Do all the bits, and I will see you guys in the next one. Till then, take care and have a good night.